Thank you. We're all learning with how to run virtual meetings. I'll unmute myself and start over again. Um, please confirm, recording secretary, that you can hear me. And you do have the agenda that you're sharing on the screen. Thank you. So I want to repeat, welcome and thank attendees to this zoning administrator meeting of June 25th. I am the zoning administrator. My name is Andy Gustafson. And as we go through the agenda today, I'll be working with the applicants and the project planner and the public in attendance to take action on the items. Before you see the agenda, it notes, if we can get a full screen view of that page, that would be most helpful. Thank you. Yes, page view would be perfect. I'll call the meeting to order, but first, and then run through a few things that are unique to a virtual or remote meeting that we're conducting today. This meeting is organized in the same fashion as our face-to-face public hearings, except that with the remote communication, we have a few different procedures that we need to follow. First, when in the course of the meeting, there's a presentation, each participant will be given opportunity to speak. They will need to unmute themselves. The recording secretary will give them rights to use the microphone, but you must remember to unmute yourself in order to be heard by all. Once we close the public meeting, when the applicant and the project planner has completed their presentation, the meeting will be closed and the public will be given opportunity to speak or comment. And at that time, if you raise your hand, those of you who are participating and can see the video, you will be recognized and allowed to speak. Those of you who might be attending, listening on the phone, you can also participate, but you will need to press *9 and we will recognize you in turn. So just bear that in mind. It takes a little longer to transition between one speaker to the next, but everybody will have an opportunity to comment who wishes to do so. So that's sort of the preliminaries. The agenda is shown on the screen here. It's being shared. The first thing we want to do is offer opportunity for anybody in the audience who might be listening or watching an opportunity to comment about any matter that is not on the agenda. If you wish to do so, please raise your hand and you'll be recognized now. And I see we have a total of 9 attendees, and we have one participant who wishes to comment. And recording secretary, if you can allow Mr. Hedgepath to speak. Mr. Hedgepath, you will need to unmute yourself.
I'm sorry, Mr. Gustafson. This is Ingrid Anderson, and I'm just speaking from Mr. Hedgepath's computer. I don't have any comments. Thank you.
Okay. You may want to, okay, your hand will now be taken down. You will certainly have opportunity to raise it again. A second person has raised their hand at this point. PJ Belmont, you will be recognized and allowed to speak on a matter that's not on the agenda. Your mic is open. You can speak at this point. We are not getting any audio from PJ Belmont. I will move on if Mr. or Mrs. Belmont, yes, are you able to? Let's move forward. If Mr. or Mrs. PJ Belmont figures out the mic, then we will grant opportunity for comment. Recording secretary, if you would please turn off the mic, the talking rights. Thank you. We're all learning how to work with this environment, so I apologize for the inconvenience that you may experience sometimes with the technology. Okay, so now we move to the scheduled items on the agenda. There are 2 items. The same project planner will present both. Andrew Tripple's the project planner. I want to recognize him now and allow Andrew to give his presentation on a minor design review permit for 500 Kiwanis Springs Road, Santa Rosa, California. Andrew Triple.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Gustafson. This is Andrew Triple, and I am presenting from City Hall today. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So if I could get the presentation, please. Thank you. So today's presentation is a minor design review for Kiwanis Springs Apartments, located at 450 500 Kiwanis Springs Road in the city of Santa Rosa. The required planning entitlement is minor design review by the zoning administrator. Pre-application neighborhood meeting and pre-application concept design review by the design review board were required prior to submitting for minor design review. Next slide, please. As reflected in the data shown on the screen, the project proposes 151 units, all income qualified affordable housing units, which would contribute 5.9% towards the city's goal for income qualified housing. Next slide, please. So the proposed project will be a multifamily residential use adjacent to existing multifamily and mobile home park uses. It proposes 10 studio apartments, 48 one-bedroom apartments, 71 two-bedroom apartments, and 22 three-bedroom apartments in a 5-story building for a total of 151 units. 218 surface parking spaces are proposed. A majority of those parking spaces would have solar canopy carports to provide for solar power generation, which would contribute to the project's net zero energy usage goal. There are indoor and outdoor community amenities for residents provided, including indoor exercise spaces, and then moving outdoors to a pool area, a children's play area, teen play area, and several adult kind of lounge slash barbecue areas. Next slide, please. So this slide details the project history. In December 2019, the pre-application neighborhood meeting and concept review by the design review board were conducted. On January 15th, the applications were submitted, and on January 22nd, a notice of application was distributed. Then the final revisions to projects were completed during planning review and submitted, received by planning on June 9th of this year. A notice of public hearing was distributed for today's public hearing on June 13th of this year. Next slide, please. So the project location is in southeast Santa Rosa, approximately 2 miles from downtown Santa Rosa. It's in an area that has experienced a previously existing residential development but is experiencing some new residential development as well, particularly on the southeast corner of Kiwanis Springs Road and Petaluma Hill Road. It's close to Highway 101 and Petaluma Hill Road corridors. It's well served by City Bus Transit and Sonoma County Transit. It has excellent connectivity to bicycle and pedestrian networks, and it's surrounded by primarily service industry employment opportunities. Commercial goods and services are also available throughout the area. Schools are accessible, and it's close to Taylor Mountain Regional Park, Colgan Creek Park, and the fairgrounds. Next slide, please. As we zoom in on the project location, we see that it's across from the Santa Rosa Marketplace. That location includes Target, Costco, Trader Joe's, and other opportunities to access commercial goods and services. To the west is Carriage Court, an age-restricted mobile home park established in the 70s that features approximately 75 units. And to the east is the Meadows apartment homes developed in the 90s, which consist of approximately 76 units. It's bordered on the south by several of the Yolanda Avenue industrial uses, although the Yolanda Avenue Apartments project was recently approved, and that would be on towards the south of the proposed project site. Next slide, please. So the project's previous slide, please. So the project site is comprised of 2 parcels totaling 3.73 acres. The smaller parcel at 450 Kiwanis Springs Road to the left and up of the red star was previously used for outdoor storage, but currently has several vacant structures on it. The larger parcel with parcel address 500 Kiwanis Springs Road was previously developed for residential use, but that was demolished in the early 1990s. Since then, the land has been disked and maintained as vacant land. Next slide, please. So in this slide, we can see a street level image of westbound Kiwanis Springs Road. On the right-hand side of the image is the Target store in Santa Rosa Marketplace. On the left side of the image is the vacant land, which is the site of the proposed Kiwanis Springs Apartments. On the lower image, then we see eastbound Kiwanis Springs Road, a view headed east, where we have the Target Santa Rosa Marketplace on the left. We do see on the right-hand side of the image the further easternmost portion of the Carriage Court Mobile Homes Park as we approach the project site, which would be on the right-hand side. Next slide, please. In these street view images on the top, as we're headed eastbound on Kiwanis Springs Road, we do see the access point to Santa Rosa Marketplace with a Target in the background to the left. I've highlighted a couple instances there of some potentially unsafe conditions where we do have vehicles that have to pull out into the pedestrian crossing in order to get views of oncoming traffic on Kiwanis Springs Road. We also see where we have a vehicle that has cut across the bicycle lane to turn into Santa Rosa Marketplace. And then, of course, we have a pedestrian who's seeking to cross the entrance to Santa Rosa Marketplace. Directly across, we do see a vacant building structure, as well as the remainder of the proposed project site. I wanted, and down below, I have highlighted then again that vacant structure and project site. I wanted to share these images because one important feature of this project is installation of a traffic signal at this location. The traffic signal is required for the project by the city, and planning staff does believe that it will create a more safe environment for pedestrians and vehicles, bicyclists at this location on Kiwanis Springs Road. Next slide, please. So in terms of the plans, the project site's general plan land use designation and current zoning, the general plan land use designation is medium-high residential for both parcels. The smaller parcel at 450 Kiwanis Springs Road is zoned rural residential, minimum lot size 40,000 square feet. And the larger 500 Kiwanis Springs Road parcel is zoned planned development 0408, which was a high density senior housing plan development that was approved in the late 90s, early 2000s, but was never constructed. This slide also reflects the project's general plan residential land use in relationship to surrounding retail and business services land uses, as well as mobile home park and other residential land uses of differing densities, including the industrial land use to the south of the project. Next slide, please. So here, as we take a more specific look at the project site, we see that the general plan medium high density residential land use maximum density is 30 units per acre. The rural residential zoning district would not allow implementation of the general plan land use designation because that maximum density would exceed the maximum allowable density of the rural residential zoning district. Additionally, the planned development would restrict development to a 92-unit senior housing project only, which is not consistent with the medium high density residential land use designation. Next slide, please. So this project in particular was proposed as a 151 unit, 100% affordable project. And the maximum density, which we'll see in a couple of slides related to the density bonus, was 112 units per acre. However, the project was eligible and is eligible for a density bonus, which allows it to exceed the maximum of 30 units per acre. However, California Government Code Section 65589.5, which is the Housing Accountability Act, has been amended to allow a proposed project, housing project, that is consistent with general plan objective criteria on a site where the zoning does not implement the general plan land use designation. So that amendment to the Housing Accountability Act was applied to this project site. This allows the project site to be developed at the general plan density, but does not require a rezoning of either parcels. However, the project would have to comply with the implementing zoning district for the medium high density residential land use designation. And that implementing zoning district is found in our multifamily zoning districts, the R3-30 zoning district. Next slide, please. So the general plan and zoning development density and development standards were affected by the density bonus. This project does qualify for a state 35% density bonus. It does meet the eligibility criteria, which requires that at least 30% of the project be low income. Low income is defined as less than 80% of the average median income. And because it is eligible for the density bonus, it is granted a maximum of 3 incentives or concessions to development standards. Next slide, please. So here's a drill down on the density bonus data. In our project profile, we see that the project site is 3.73 acres. Total number of units proposed is 151. The maximum density is 30 units per acre. At that maximum density of 30 units per acre, 112 units would be allowed. The desired density, however, is 40.4 dwelling units per acre. So a calculation of the application of the state 35% density bonus would result in a maximum allowable density of 41 dwelling units per acre. So the density proposed at 151 dwelling units per acre does fall within that maximum allowable density of 41 dwelling units per acre when the 35% state density bonus is applied. Next slide, please. As I previously mentioned, the project would be granted 3 concessions or incentives to development standards or regulations. The project has indicated that it desires to apply a concession to the building height, to the parking requirement, and to accessory structure setbacks in the multifamily residential zoning district. Next slide, please. Here we see the general development standards that would be applicable to the project. The project does comply with the maximum lot coverage allowed. The primary building height for the R3 zoning district is 45 feet. We can see here that the project proposes 66 feet 6 inches or 5 stories. This is where the project has applied the concession granted through the density bonus to allow it to exceed the maximum building height. The project does comply with primary front and side interior and rear setbacks. However, the accessory setbacks are a minimum of 5 feet for side and rear setbacks. The canopies of the carport solar structures do extend into closer than 5 feet to the side and rear yard property lines. And so the project has requested a concession to allow them to extend into the side and rear setbacks. Fences, walls, and hedges, the zoning code does allow a 6-foot tall fence, and the project proposes a 5-foot tall privacy fence surrounding the entire project. And as for parking, a total number of spaces required by the zoning code is 244 spaces. Because this is an affordable multifamily, those spaces do not have to be covered. This project is proposing a total of 218 spaces, the majority of which would be covered by the solar carport canopies. The project does achieve 89% of the required parking. While this could be allowed and approved through the minor design review process, the applicant has chosen to apply a concession to the parking standards as well to allow the project to move forward with 218 parking spaces. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in the next couple of slides, I wanted to briefly take a quick look at the framework for design review. This is a design review, and so it is. The project is subject to compliance with the framework for design review and consistency with applicable design guidelines. So the framework looks at the site, natural, and built environment, and it looks for a response to integration or incorporation with natural and built environment as an expression of the design concept. For architecture, it's looking at the use of form massing materials and detailing as an expression of the design concept. And for landscaping, it's looking at articulation and definition of spaces with appropriate landscape materials, also as an expression of the design concept. And here we can see the specific applicable review criteria. Next slide, please. Additionally, the framework would look at placemaking livability, and it seeks to findings related to the site plan, landscaping, building design, or the placement that would create, contribute, or reinforce a sense of place, but then also establish a suitable and dignified living environment, which would express the design concept. Finally, under sustainability, we are to find that it promotes responsible and sustainable use of resources and promotes a healthier lifestyle. And then finally, the overall design concept is a thoughtfully integrated design that is consistent with the applicable design guidelines. Next slide, please. Most applicable design guidelines to develop a multifamily housing project that is compatible with existing surrounding homes or other structures and provide superior design. Provide a quality living environment, a place where residents can take pride and gain a sense of ownership in their neighborhood. Encourage projects that are safe and contribute to safe neighborhoods, and support the police and fire efforts to promote public safety. To provide developments with layouts and designs that make sense. To enhance the public realm through its treatment of the streetscape, as well as how it approaches the street, and to encourage energy efficient design as well. Next slide, please. Thank you. The project was reviewed by the Design Review Board through Concept Design Review in December 2019. Recommendations from the Design Review Board included adding some tree canopy to the paved parking areas, using different tree species perhaps, and having a variety of tree species throughout the project, providing more buffer and privacy at the Coachman Lane entrance off of Kiwanis Springs Road to the Carriage Court Mobile Home Park. And also they felt that while you could stick with one particular rooftop, both a pitched or parapet rooftops would be appropriate. And then to consider differentiating the outdoor amenities spaces, those adult barbecue spaces, from one another. Next slide, please. So here we have a view of the proposed site plan. As we can see, the entrance to the site off of Kiwanis Springs Road is in the upper corner of the site. As you move from the entrance to the right, you do have a dog park that is more heavily landscaped in response to the Design Review Board's concept review recommendation. The entirety of the 218 parking spaces are arranged on the exterior of the site with the 5-story residential building to the interior. Along the outer edge, those parking spaces are a majority, with the exception of 2 and 3, would be covered by those solar canopy carports, which will contribute to solar power generation on the site as it seeks to achieve a 100% or 0% electricity usage for the site. We see that on the interior of the site, the developed portion, that we have the buildings arranged in a sort of a linear fashion, where we do allow for the swimming pool and the children's play area and one of the outdoor recreation areas to be located on the western side of the site, nestled into the building. And then as we move down, we see that we have another outdoor barbecue area, more of an adult style or a quieter outdoor recreation area that is nestled within the U of the site. Up to front on the site plan, we do have it front loaded with the indoor community amenities areas, as well as the leasing offices and the bicycle storage area that is accessible both from within the building as well as from the exterior sidewalk. And then in front of the building is located a bus stop, which would allow for bus pickup to service not just the building, but the entirety of the neighborhood. And because no parking is allowed in front of the project site, that would enable the bus to pull out of the roadway to service that bus stop. Next slide, please. And so this is a image of the proposed site plan with landscaping, and we'll take a closer look at that. But we can see with the darker areas that we do have a significant amount of landscaping surrounding the entirety of the building, as well as especially up front, where the building meets the street and seeks to create that important street realm as indicated in the framework for design review and the applicable design guidelines. We can also see here that based upon the site plan, that we can determine that the proposed development would not be detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare to the properties or improvements in the vicinity, in that the residential use is a permitted use, similar to existing and planned future uses, which would be based upon the general plan land use designations and the zoning of the surrounding areas. We can also establish that the number of parking spaces approved would be sufficient for the safe, convenient, and efficient operation of the use due to reduced parking demand resulting from enhanced access to multimodal transportation networks, including our bicycle and pedestrian networks, our transit, and proximity to commercial goods and services, especially at Santa Rosa Marketplace. Next slide, please. So this is the proposed site plan with trees in particular highlighted. We see that we do have a variety of trees responding to the recommendation by the Design Review Board, and that those are spread throughout the site, with some larger trees located at the entrance to the project site to help screen that entrance from the mobile home park. Next slide, please. And then this is the back portion of the site. One issue that arose during planning review was the conflict between the design guidelines desire to see trees on a project site and the project sustainability goal of generating solar electricity. So we do find that the design guidelines, while they are a recommendation, would not require that those trees be located in between or spaced in between the solar canopies. And so staff is recommending approval of the alternative design, which would allow the solar canopy carports to be located without tree canopy to allow for solar power generation. Next slide, please. And so here we have a view of the project site from the northwest. So this would be from Kiwanis Springs Road, approaching it from the west. And here we can see that we have this two-story volume of community space with great transparency, so you can see into the activities going on there. And the very strong vertical form of the front of the building. The architectural design of the proposed development is compatible with the character of surrounding neighborhood in that the building design is reflective of the intended use of the project, the residential use project, and of existing and planned residential uses in the area. Next slide, please. From this view, we can see that the project is well connected to vehicle, transit, bicycle, and pedestrian networks. And we can see how the required installation of the traffic signalization contributes to the project safety and would interact with the entrance to the project site. A traffic impact study was prepared by a licensed professional engineer. The results of that study indicate that there would be negligible impacts to existing traffic conditions as a result of this project. Next slide, please. On this view from the northeast, we can see the length of the building as we move from the street towards the back of the project site. We can see that it establishes a highly visible, cohesive design aesthetic and provides a design vocabulary that could benefit from and supports future development in the surrounding area, consistent with the framework for design review. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is a portion about midway back on the building, and here the design team has implemented a two-story breezeway feature, which would allow a visual pass-through of the building. We can see here that it does open up the building at this point, and there is a second-story walkway that does have a transparency on both sides of it to allow that walkway to, in essence, float above the breezeway space. To the left, we can see the portion that would be the pool, and then to the right would be the youth play areas. Next slide, please. And here we can see a portion looking from the rear of the project forward to the community space and onto Kiwanis Springs Road. As we see through these images, we can find that the project would not interfere with the use and enjoyment of neighboring existing or future developments, in that the site plan, the building design, and the landscaping would create a suitable living environment and strengthen the sense of place created within the development itself. Next slide, please. And here in this view of the rear of the building from the southeast, we see that the design has extended to all four sides of the building, and the building form, massing, materials, and detailing are a cohesive expression of the design concept and provide an identifiable expression of the building's function. Next slide, please. And so these are some exterior building elevations that were proposed in concept design review. While the design itself is consistent with what is brought before you today, we do see that there are differences in color. The applicant team has indicated that the color renderings of the other images that we've looked at, those lighter colors, are more consistent with what's intended. However, we do want to note, planning staff would note that we do not regulate color through design review. Next slide, please. And so finally, we see the colors and materials. We have a variety of materials, a variety of colors that really sparks visual interest in the project site and the building. The design of the proposed development would provide a desirable environment for its occupants, visiting public, and its neighbors through an appropriate use of materials, textures, and color, and would remain aesthetically appealing and be appropriately maintained, in that the site and building design would promote sustainable lifestyle options in both form and function. Next slide, please. And finally, we see the solar carport detail. These are all metal carports, and we can see how they would, the rear of the carport would extend back into that 5-foot setback slightly, remaining approximately 2 to 3 feet from the property line and from that the solid wall surrounding the project site. The net zero for electricity site and building design would promote sustainable living through solar energy production as seen here, and incorporation of water and energy saving features throughout, contributing to compliance in the framework for design reviews sustainability element. Next slide, please. So this project was reviewed as required under the California Environmental Quality Act. It was determined that the project is exempt pursuant to Class 32, Section 15332 for infill development projects. Specifically, it is consistent with the Santa Rosa General Plan and the current zoning code. It's located within the city of Santa Rosa. The project site is less than 5 acres and is substantially surrounded by development. It's not located within a designated habitat area for any endangered, rare, or threatened species. It would not result in any significant effects related to traffic, noise, air quality, or water quality, and the project site is adequately served by required utilities and public services. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, public comments were received during the pre-application neighborhood meeting in December 2019 in response to the notice of application that was issued in January 2020, and also in response to the notice of public hearing that was issued on January 13th. These public comments were responded to and were addressed throughout the planning review process and subsequently as late correspondence. Traffic concerns were noted by several respondents, the challenge of accessing Quanah Springs Road from side streets, and the long waits at intersections of the Quanah Springs Road and Santa Rosa Avenue. Planning staff has determined that through review of the traffic impact study, that there would be no significant negative impacts on existing traffic conditions, and installation of the required traffic signal would help to moderate the flow of traffic along Quanah Springs Road and contribute to a more safe environment for pedestrians and vehicles. There were also concerns that the insufficient on-site parking would exacerbate parking issues on Quanah Springs Road. The project is proposing 89% of the required parking and has applied a concession to the minimum parking requirement. Planning staff does find that parking is adequate for this site because of the robustness of the multimodal network, as well as the proximity of commercial goods and services. Finally, noise concerns. There were comments that excessive noise may affect neighbors to the west, particularly as it relates to ground level activity. The applicant has designed into the project a privacy wall around all edges of the project site to ensure that noise is contained on site. Finally, there's a concern about building height and shadowing of the existing apartments to the east. The building height of 5 stories does exceed the maximum allowable building height of 45 feet. The applicant has applied a concession to building height, which would allow the building height to exceed and achieve its maximum proposed height of 66 feet. Because the building is longer and narrower and centrally located on the site, shadow studies provided by the applicant do indicate that there would be a minimal impact of shadow on the Meadows apartments to the east of the project site. Next slide, please. And so based upon planning review, it is recommended by Planning and Economic Development that the zoning administrator approve minor design review for the Quanah Springs apartments at 450 and 500 Kiwanis Springs Road. Planning staff is available for any questions you might have, and the applicant is available as well to answer any questions and provide a brief presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew Triple. I would open or invite the applicant at this time to comment, to make a presentation if you choose to do so.
Yes, my name is Jake Lingo. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I would like to start off by thanking you for having me here tonight. As I stated, my name is Jake Lingo, and I'm here on behalf of Integrated Community Development. We're also known by our initials, ICD. I will be presenting two projects to you tonight. The first one being the Kiwanis Springs apartment currently before you, and then the second being Santa Rosa Avenue Apartments, which is up next on the agenda. I'd like to start off by thanking Andrew Triple for preparing the staff reports and all of his efforts in getting us to the agenda tonight. I know with the COVID-19 pandemic, it has been quite the process to make this hearing possible, and we are sincerely grateful for the efforts. I would also like to thank Mr. Gustafson for his time presiding over tonight's hearing, and thank Bill Rose and all the Santa Rosa staff for their efforts. Tonight, I thought it'd be appropriate to talk a little bit about our development team, who we are and what we do, and then I'll discuss the Kiwanis Springs Apartments and answer any questions you may have. ICD is a fully integrated development firm that specializes in all aspects of real estate development with a primary focus on affordable housing. We focus on affecting change by creating environments that uplift communities by being sustainable, socially responsible, and economically viable. Our strategic nonprofit partner is Corporation for Better Housing, who has been in the affordable housing industry for over 25 years. Together, we have developed and constructed 75 developments totaling close to 5,000 housing units throughout the state of California. We have secured approximately $2 billion of both public and private financing to construct these developments. The hallmark of our business, and something that we are extremely proud of, is the amount of repeat business that we do. If you look at our portfolio, you will see many communities where we have built multiple developments. We have a history and reputation of delivering on our promises and standing by our products. If there are issues that need to be addressed, we address them head on, and we strive to be a positive influence on the communities we reside in. Although we have not developed property in Santa Rosa, we do own assets in Cloverdale and Calistoga and have a strong presence in the East Bay in Northern California. Santa Rosa is an incredible city in which we have always wanted to work in. It provides opportunity, beauty, and a dire need for new housing units. We are here to help meet the need and hope to be a shining example of how a contemporary, high-density suburban apartment development can succeed and add to the quality of life for the residents of Santa Rosa. One of the first steps we took when we arrived in Santa Rosa was to bring Hedgepeth Architects onto our development team. I met Warren while working on another project in Cloverdale, where his firm is serving as lead architect for a master plan community we are working on. The reason I mention this is that I want you to understand that we value local insight and knowledge. We strive to become good neighbors and integral contributors to the community in which we reside. We all know that Santa Rosa has a housing crisis. Houses and apartments are in high demand, and prices and rents continue to outpace wages. This crisis has only been exacerbated by the devastation of wildfires. The city of Santa Rosa has taken tremendous steps to help foster smart growth and development, such as the one we are proposing here at 450 Kiwanis Springs Road, by creating priority development areas to developers willing to invest in these areas. The state, under new leadership of Governor Newsom, has taken bold steps to provide financing aimed to help alleviate the housing crisis as well. As part of this plan, the state has created a new funding source targeting towards middle-income earners and not just very low-income renters. These apartments will be available to what Governor Newsom refers to as the missing middle. These units will be made available to individuals who earn between approximately $40,000 and $56,000 per year. For a family of four, the targeted income will be between $57,000 and $80,000 per year. These are working class families. These are young professionals. These are the types of people we want to keep in our community. These combining factors allow us to bring a first-class development such as the Kiwanis Springs Apartments to your city at rental rates commensurate with the incomes of the working class, allowing individuals and families to have more discretionary income to enjoy life. The project, I want to talk a little bit about the project before you. I think that Andrew did a really thorough and fantastic job of describing the project. What I thought I would do is supplement his report by highlighting a little bit more of what we did to address the public comments received and those received by the Design Review Board. One of the characteristics that makes this development special is not only the superior urban design and location, but its amenity package. This development is built to be environmentally sustainable and includes an amazing amenity package, including an on-site pool, gym facilities, business center, community room, computer lab, and 3 separate courtyard barbecue areas. This is a market rate development with mixed income rents. One of the main comments from the Design Review Board was regarding the tree canopy and adding trees where possible. In response to the tree canopy comments, we did add at the east side of the driveway loop 6 deciduous Chinese pistache canopy trees to the landscaping plan. At the west side of the driveway loop, deciduous Chinese pistache canopy trees and 6 dwarf evergreen Mongolia trees were added to the landscape plan as well. It should be noted that the City of Santa Rosa Fire Code does not permit trees that exceed 15 feet in height to be located adjacent to buildings over 3 stories. At the south side of the driveway loop, 3 golden rain deciduous canopy trees were added to the landscape plan. And at the northwest side of the entry driveway, 3 deciduous London plane canopy trees were added as well. The entire perimeter of the site is used for covered parking, as mentioned in Andrew's staff report. Stalls are covered with PV panel hosting steel canopies to reduce solar heat gain at paved surfaces and to provide 100% of the project's power requirements with renewable energy. This will be a net zero energy development. One of the trade-offs with a net zero design is that the solar array will be placed on top of carports and that therefore taking away from space for shade trees in the parking lots. In our opinion, this is a trade-off we are willing to accept, as the benefit of the net zero energy designation helps reduce our carbon footprint and provide cost savings to the residents. Because canopy trees are not compatible with the PV panel hosting structures located at the west side boundary of Coachman Lane, to soften this boundary and bring a more natural feel to the project, a good neighbor privacy fence is shown. The fence is shown on detail 15, sheet A9.20. The fence is constructed of 8-inch CMU block with a continuous concrete cap and painted stucco finish. Pilasters of 16-inch CMU block with concrete caps articulate the length of the fence every 60 feet on center. And the fence is fully landscaped with an attractive evergreen vine. In addition to the trees that we added at the sidewalks adjacent to the parking stalls, the project landscape plan also shows 6 crepe myrtles and 2 oak trees in the east-facing side of the building. We have 3 oak trees at the south-facing side of the building, 5 oak trees and 2 Chinese pistache trees and 11 dwarf magnolia trees at the west-facing side of the building, and additional 3 dwarf magnolia trees on the north-facing side of the building. We were asked by the Design Review Board to consider differentiating the barbecue spaces from one another, and in response, we have provided 3 separate barbecue spaces, each with a distinct character. One is at the play structure adjacent to the pool enclosure and in the west-facing courtyard. It is designed to accommodate larger groups and also has a seating area with a fire pit. A second barbecue area for 2 small groups is located in the pool enclosure, and a third barbecue area for 1 small group or 1 larger group is located in the east-facing courtyard and also has a seating area with a fire pit. Barbecue areas are tucked into alcoves in the recreational open space defined by the planting beds, landscaped with shrubs, small trees, and ground cover. At this time, I would like to address some of the comments we have received from the community regarding the affordability of the rent structure and management practices of our communities. Kiwanis Springs Apartments will be one of the newest and nicest apartment communities in town when finished. Maintaining a clean, professional appearance, interior and exterior, is a key performance requirement for our management company. The management company is held to high standards, as are the residents of the apartment community itself, and are monitored monthly with on-site visits by the owners and other vested partners. Examples of some common management practices for staff and residents to ensure a clean and professional presentation of the rental community are inclusive of our on-site staff. We will have full-time on-site management team, including maintenance and groundskeepers. They will perform daily inspections of the property and are required to be made routinely throughout the day. This includes, but is not limited to, walking the grounds to remove trash and litter, lighting inspections of both interior and exterior spaces, monitoring the landscape and irrigation systems, cleaning all common spaces, both interior and exterior, and reviewing the playground, sport court, or any other play areas for safety or liability risks. There are also daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual checklists for the on-site maintenance staff to follow to ensure the property is maintained to the highest standards. With regards to residents, each resident receives a copy of the community policies and procedures guides at move-in, which establishes and reinforces the living standards for the development. This is incorporated as part of the lease, and violations are issued if policies are abused or broken. Violations could result in lease termination. Some examples of common community policies for our residents include that the decks and patios are not to be used for storage. Only proper outdoor furniture will be allowed on the decks. All cars are issued registration tags. Cars without tags or cars that are not roadworthy will be towed upon the expiration of the notice period. Repairing of cars and other automotive vehicles on site is not permitted on the property. Residents may not change the blinds in their units or hang other window coverings. For the quiet enjoyment of others, quiet hours have been established for the community. They are from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. daily. And residents must refrain from loud noises, loud music, or televisions at this time as a courtesy to those living around. The property and common amenity areas will be designed with limited access points, which will require key fobs. Cameras will be installed at various points of the property, including the common areas, hallways, club room, pool, laundry room, stairwells, entrances to the building, and entrances to the property. There was another comment received with regards to the availability of senior housing at this location. Our marketing will be inclusive to all age groups, and applications from all age categories will be taken and processed. The staff will follow federal guidelines to ensure that no violations to the federal fair housing laws. All applicants are screened. They're reviewed and approved using a uniform manner in accordance with funding requirements and all applicable housing laws. Our applicant screening process includes the following. All applicants 18 years of age or older who reside in the apartment are screened in the same manner. A formal rental selection criteria will be established and posted for all applicants to view. The selection criteria will generally include a credit check. It must have acceptable score and history, nationwide criminal background check. Parameters will comply with the current state and federal laws, rental history review, acceptable history with no evictions, and they must income qualify for the unit set aside. They must meet income guidelines established by the federal and state agencies. In addition to the community policies, the residential lease will address a drug and crime-free addendum part of the lease package. Misdemeanors and felonies reviewed, and parameters will comply with current state and federal laws. Community rules and regulations are established for each development, and residents must comply, and violations can result in eviction. As part of our living experience, we will also offer a host of social service opportunities. We will provide guidance and support to the residents, helping to connect them with local partners, state and federal agencies, and other groups to provide access to services which continue to enhance the lives of those who live at the community. We will offer programming to adults and children, which could include financial literacy, budgeting, steps to home ownership, fraud prevention, online banking, credit cards, employment and job opportunity counseling, and computer classes. We also have fitness programs for all ages, mental health workshops, and health screenings. After-school programs can include homework or tutoring, field trips, social skill building exercises, and recreational activities. We believe that we have an opportunity before us to make a real positive impact on the residents of Santa Rosa. The Kiwanis Springs Apartments will connect jobs, housing, and services while improving mobility options that reduce air pollution and encourage increased transit ridership. The infill development provides opportunities for housing in an urban environment. Our goal is to build a development that will be attractive, sustainable, and support modern family lifestyles while contributing to alleviating the housing shortage. This concludes my presentation, and I'm now available for any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Does any member of your project team wish to comment at this point, or is it now, do you wish to respond to public comments when we open the public meeting portion of this hearing?
I think we're good. We'll just respond to comments. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your presentation. I think you gave a very comprehensive overview of the operations and management of the facility and the design response to Design Review Committee's concept review suggestions. I appreciate you outlining that. At this time, I will open the meeting for public comment. And before I do so, I just want to read through or remind everybody in this remote meeting context of the following. So those of you who are participating by video, please raise your hand. There's an icon on the screen. And if you have a question, use that and we will recognize you and you'll be given talking permission, and you'll need to click the little microphone icon to actually be heard. Those of you who have called in or on the telephone, and we have one member who has done so, please press *9 on your phone and we will allow you to comment. But unless you do so, we won't know that you wish to do so. So when you've asked your question, please lower your hand and turn off your microphone, and then we will get either a response from the project planner or the applicant team. So at this point, recording secretary, I'm looking at the list of attendees and I can see that we don't, let me see here. We don't have any in the audience that are wishing to speak at this point. I'll take a moment now to allow the attendees who wish to do so to find the raise your hand button and so we can recognize you. I am not seeing any, so I will, we have one raised hand, PJ Belmont. If the recording secretary would recognize Mr. or Mrs. Belmont.
You should have a prompt, and when you respond to the prompt, you'll be heard.
So again, attendees, when you wish to speak and if you raised your hand, the recording secretary will give you speaking rights. And at that point, you will need to click on the microphone icon, or you need to unmute yourself, which will be on your screen, upper right corner, excuse me. And I see there was a text here. I'm going to read this out. I'd like to present a comment through telephone, not computer audio. Okay, are you the caller that we see on the attendee list with the call numbers, last four digits 6148? If so, please raise your hand and we will recognize you. And to do so, you have to press *9 on your telephone. Can you indicate in your chat whether or not you're presently on the phone
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So my name is PJ Belmont. I live nearby in Ansbury, which is behind Target. I have a concern, and my concern has to do with public safety. The project is about a mile away from Roger Creek and a few miles away from Taylor Mountain. As you have seen in previous years, we have had fire issues and we have had evacuations in these areas. As it is under normal circumstances, traffic is really bad, particularly during rush hour. When because of the one-lane roads and the one-lane overpass Hearn Avenue, it takes quite a long time to actually access the freeway. My concern is how is adding this amount of families and cars going to impact during an evacuation, that is by an earthquake or a fire. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. Let me just find out if we have anybody else who wishes to comment at this point from the public. Are there any other attendees who wish to comment? So what I'd like to do now is ask the project planner to speak to the issue that was raised regarding emergency evacuation in this circumstance. Recording secretary, if you could allow Andrew Triple to speak.
Yes, can you hear me? Okay, great. So the project has been reviewed by City Traffic and City Fire. An evacuation plan is not required for project applications, and so Fire has conditioned the project accordingly based upon its evaluation of the proposed project, the density, and so forth. We also have the traffic impact study, which indicates that while it is 151 units, that would not contribute significantly to existing traffic conditions. However, it is understandable that during an evacuation period, when a number of people may be seeking to exit, that there would be potentially difficulties exiting the area. So I think in sum that we do have the citywide evacuation plans and such, and they would be applicable to this project, but there is no specific evacuation strategy for this project because none is required.
I have one follow-up question to your response. This is Andy, zoning administrator. And we may not know this, but would the city's evacuation plan look at what is actually built on the ground today, or would they look at providing adequate evacuation routes for the future build out in the area?
That's a great question. And I'm not certain how to answer that. I believe that the city is working on developing those community evacuation plans that would identify routes for neighborhoods and for broader sections of the community. I don't think that they would specifically take into account individual developments. There are other strategies that can be specific to the project, and I would like to ask the applicant to comment as well for project-specific strategies that they might be implementing.
And I will call upon the applicant to do so, but I will also reiterate here that, or ask the question, you have reviewed this project, or the fire department did review this project, and they're looking not just at local fire safety, but fire safety, and I imagine access during a period of evacuation or high traffic.
That is my understanding, and it is correct that they do look at fire safety and access to the building itself.
Okay, so I'll let Recording secretary, if you would allow the applicant to respond to this question. We have Mr. Lingo's hand raised.
He is currently not muted.
Thank you, Mr. Gustafson. This is Jake Lingo. I wanted to let you know that this is something that we have experience with and something that we put a lot of thought into as well. We do, as I mentioned earlier, have existing developments in the area, including Calistoga, which we dealt with during the Tubbs fires. We have development in Cloverdale. We also have some up in Mendocino County. So it is, we do have plans on site regarding evacuation. And then also a really important part of that is communication. As we know, when these fires occur, a lot of times they do start in the hills, the foothills, and we have to be very responsive to the fire department and the city elected officials on when evacuation is required and making sure that all of the residents are able to get evacuated. You know, we can have all types of people living in our communities, from seniors or maybe someone that doesn't have a vehicle. And so that is something that, again, we have experience with, we have plans in place, and we would work with local government to make sure that we were communicating the proper instructions to our residents.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for addressing that issue. I think it is an important one. We're all very sensitive to fire risks in our community. So I completely understand that concern. Are there any other members of the public who wish to comment at this point in time? If so, please raise your hand using the icon, or if you're on the telephone, use *9. All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. And at this point in the meeting, and I didn't say this up front, I usually do, and I'm sorry if I didn't do so. So any public meeting, including this one, will result in an action at the close of the presentation by the applicant and public comments. Now's that time. As zoning administrator, I will consider the resolution that the project planner has prepared, and the application materials that have been presented by the applicant, as well as the comments that have been raised by the public, and take action. I have reviewed the resolution, and I think, you know, there are some, this project has done a really good job responding to design elements, and I think we can potentially bolster some of the attributes that support the staff's recommendation for this application to be approved. Particularly, and if we could have the resolution presented, I know there's some findings that we might build upon that really further expresses how in this setting, which is really going to undergo quite a bit of change in development type, while it's all residential at a very low density, or much of it is, we are planning for and hope to see more housing, and housing like this does really set the stage for the kind of increase in units that we need in a manner that's compatible with the area. So I would like the planner we have on the screen the resolution, and I know that there's been a response to some changes. Can you put that on a page view, please, 100%, so we can see the entirety of that one page? Actually, one page will, there you go. There are some clarifications here in the resolution that state that this project was subject to concept design review The feedback that came out of that resulted in some modifications that were described here. If you could scroll down to condition 4. This language, this revision, I think is probably getting more at the important issue of how do we make a finding that the design of proposed development is in character with the surrounding neighborhood, which in this case is really at a density and residential type that will change over time. And I think we can make a clear statement here that this project is residential, which is reflective of existing residential uses in the area. But importantly, it's of a residential type and density that is planned for by the city through its general plan, and also that is expressed through the design review guidelines. And I think that the changes here would more precise regarding health and safety. And this gets to the point that the gentleman made regarding development and the potential hazards associated with or risks associated with during a fire event and the need for evacuation. If you could go to the top of the next page, please. It's important to note here that the project was planned consistent with future development in the area according to the general plan, and that full consideration was given to the operation of the facility, compatibility with the area. We're not introducing a new type use that would conflict with residential uses in the area now or in the future, and that the parking reduction and the proposed traffic light will help to ensure that traffic from this site, as well as just traffic in the area, will continue to be or improve operational safety. And not only for vehicles, but also for pedestrians. So these modifications, I think, help really strengthen the finding that the project would not be detrimental to health, safety, and welfare in this location. I just wanted to put those forward as modifications that more completely express, I think, the basis for the findings that support this project. And with those changes to the resolution, there are no changes to the conditions of approval. But with those changes to the findings, I will approve this project. And this project or any other action taken today is appealable for a 10-day period, which concludes, actually it's going to be after the 4th of July weekend. So it's 10 days or the first business day after 10 days. So, well, it will be, let me look at my calendar, July 6th, I believe.
Yes, that is correct.
So July 6th is the appeal a period end date. And if any party, applicant, or member of the community wishes to appeal, you have until the end of the business day. Please contact Andrew Triple and coordinate how you would file an appeal. So with that, this project is approved with modified findings, subject to the recommended conditions of approval. Thank you very much. We are an hour and 15 minutes into this meeting. I would like to do one thing, and I'd like to take a break, but before we do, at the beginning of this meeting, we had somebody who wanted to make a public comment on a matter not on the agenda. And I'm wondering if that attendee is present and wishes to do so now, either via Zoom or by calling it on a telephone. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, I'm assuming that person dropped off the call. Okay, off the meeting. Do we want to take a break before the next item? Do we have anybody, project planner, Andrew Triple, can you be my, does anybody want to take a break or should we go forward?
I would appreciate just a brief break to change out my notes.
Okay, let's do that. So it's, I'll call it, let's come back to this meeting at 6:25. All right, recording secretary, I'd like to commence the zoning administrator meeting. Is everybody ready?
Jake Lingo's here and ready.
Andrew Triple is here and ready.
Excellent. So the next item on the agenda, if you could put the agenda on the screen for me so I can read off. Actually, let me, I've got it here in front of me. This is a minor design review for 2905 Santa Rosa Avenue. And Andrew Triple is the project planner. If you would, Andrew, please give us your report. And then we'll proceed in the same manner we did previously. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Gustafson. The next item is planning application for minor design review for the Santa Rosa Avenue Apartments located at 2905 Santa Rosa Avenue. This is a required planning entitlement for this project, and a pre-application neighborhood meeting and pre-application concept design review by the Design Review Board were also required prior to submitting for minor design review. Next slide, please. So in terms of the project's contribution to the city's housing action plan, the proposed 154 units of 100% income qualified housing for moderate, low, and very low income households would contribute 6.2% to the goal. Next slide, please. So the proposed project is a multifamily residential project. It's 5 stories tall. It's proposed in a multifamily residential use zoning area adjacent to existing single-family residential uses and mobile home park uses. It would propose 61 bedroom units, 64 two-bedroom units, and 33 bedroom units in a 5-story building. 240 parking spaces are proposed. These are surface parking spaces with solar canopy carports. Indoor and outdoor community amenities are proposed for the residents, and the project seeks to achieve net zero for energy usage. Next slide, please. So here we see the project's history. Those required pre-application activities were completed in December 2019. The application was submitted on January 15th of this year, and a notice of application was distributed on January 22nd. No comments were received in response to the notice of application. Final revisions were received on March 11th, and the project was then scheduled for a public hearing at the completion of planning review. That public hearing, which is today's meeting, was noticed on June 13th. Notice of public hearing was distributed. And so here we are today for minor design review public hearing. Next slide, please. So the project is located in Southeast Santa Rosa, approximately 2.5 miles from downtown. It's in an area that has existing residential development both across Santa Rosa Avenue to the east as well as to the south of the project site. It's proximate to Highway 101 and to the Santa Rosa Avenue corridor. It's served by Sonoma County Transit and by city bus. It has excellent connectivity to bicycle and pedestrian networks, and is surrounded by primarily service industry employment opportunities, as well as commercial goods and services businesses. Next slide, please. So here we can see that it's about 1.5 miles south of the Santa Rosa Shopping Center, and to the immediate north of the project site are commercial uses. To the east, we can see the various residential developments. And then to the south is additional commercial use and then a mobile home park. Next slide, please. So the project site is comprised of 2 parcels totaling 3.84 acres. The smaller parcel, which would appear in the green area where the red star is, in the kind of upper right-hand corner of the project site, was previously used for residential and small-scale agricultural uses. By 2000, the lot was vacant and has been maintained in a disc state since. The larger parcel at 2905 Santa Rosa Avenue has been used for a variety of outdoor storage uses, as can be seen from the aerial data that was collected in March of this year. Next slide, please. So in the upper image, we see headed westbound on Court Street, which would be at a stop sign as Court Street approaches Santa Rosa Avenue. Across Santa Rosa Avenue, we can see the project site. The entirety of the undeveloped area would be a portion of the project site. And then to the right, where you have a vehicle exiting that commercial development, is that smaller parcel, which serves as access then to the primary portion of the site. And then headed northbound on Santa Rosa Avenue, to the left there, we can see the project site in its current state. Next slide, please. So general plan and zoning. The general plan land use designation is retail and business services. The project site is surrounded by a majority of retail and business services land use designations, and the zoning is general commercial, which is an implementing zoning district of the retail and business services land use designation. Next slide, please. So the general plan land use and livability policy E-6 does allow residential development in retail and business services. And the residential development allowed is at the density allowed by the implementing zoning district. The implementing zoning district is the general commercial zoning district, and it does allow residential density at a maximum density of 30 units per acre. It would be appropriate to note here that normally a minor use permit is required for multifamily use in a general commercial zoning district. However, this project is located within the Santa Rosa Avenue corridor priority development area, and pursuant to the resilient city measures adopted after the 2017 fires, multifamily use is a permitted use in the general commercial zoning district in a priority development area. Next slide, please. In order to achieve the proposed density, the project does require a 35% density bonus. The eligibility criteria is that at least 30% of the units must be low income, and that would be less than 80% of the average median income. And if eligible, then the project would receive a maximum of 3 incentives or concessions to applicable development standards. Next slide, please. So the project did apply for a density bonus, 35% density bonus. We can see here the project site area is 3.89 gross acres. The proposed number of dwelling units is 154, and the general commercial zoning district does allow a maximum of 30 dwelling units per acre. In order to achieve the density desired, the project would have to have a maximum density of 39.6 dwelling units per acre. The project did seek a 35% density bonus. Eligibility was determined, and the applicant was notified that the project is eligible for density bonus. That maximum density allowed is established at 41 dwelling units per acre, which is consistent with what's required for the project. Next slide, please. And so in terms of concessions to development standards or regulations for which the project was eligible due to its density bonus eligibility, the project has requested a concession to the building height development standard, as well as the minimum parking required development standard. Next slide, please. The general development standards applicable to this project, the project is well within the maximum lot coverage. In the general commercial zoning district, maximum building height is 55 feet. In order to achieve the desired goals of the project is required to have a maximum building height of 60 feet or 5 stories. And this is where the density bonus concession has been applied to project building height. In the commercial zoning district, we don't have any setback requirements. And so we've listed here the project's front setback is approximately 17 feet. And then a setback at least 10 feet on the interior sides for the primary building. There are no minimum required setbacks for accessory structures. The fences, walls, and hedges are subject to design review. The project has 5-foot privacy fences on the sides, and then the rear does have a higher sound barrier at, I believe, 8 feet. And then for parking, a total of 248 spaces are required to meet the minimum parking requirement. The project does propose 240 parking spaces, which would achieve 96% of the minimum parking required. And the applicant has sought to apply a concession for which it was eligible to the parking requirement to allow the 240 parking spaces to comply. Next slide, please. So the elements of the framework for design review for which the project must comply with regard to site, natural, and built environments, the project should respond to, integrate, and incorporate with the natural and built environment as an expression of the design concept. The architecture, the use of form, massing, materials, and detailing should also be an expression of the design concept. And the landscaping should articulate and define spaces using appropriate materials, and again, be an expression of the overall design concept. Next slide, please. So for the placemaking and livability component, the site plan, the landscaping, building design, and placement should create and reinforce a sense of place and establish a suitable and dignified living environment that is supported by the design concept. The project should promote responsible and sustainable use of resources, as well as contribute to healthier lifestyles for its residents. And the overall design concept should be a thoughtful, integrated design that is consistent with applicable design guidelines. Next slide, please. So this most applicable design guidelines include developing multifamily housing that's compatible with existing surrounding homes or other structures and does reflect superior design. It should provide a quality living environment that encourages residents to take pride in a sense of ownership in their neighborhood. And the project should contribute to safe development, to safer neighborhoods, and support police and fire safety goals. The project development should have a logical layout that people can easily navigate, and the project should contribute to the public realm in relationship to the street frontage, and as well as by providing attractive buildings and landscape treatment at that street frontage. Also, projects should encourage energy efficient design. Next slide, please. So for this project, previous slide, please. So this project, pre-application concept design review was required by the Design Review Board. And during that concept review, the Design Review Board offered the following recommendations. They felt that brick veneer could contribute to depth and shadow on the facade. They suggested integrating orchard parking into the areas to break up asphalt, incorporating a sound wall or other sound barrier at the rear of the project, adjacent to Highway 101, landscaping the buffer at the northern easement at the entrance to the project, and felt that additional vertical solar panels on the building would be recommended. They suggested creating a destination and an area that is a gateway to Santa Rosa down on the southern end of our city, and bringing some warmth into the building itself to counter the generally commercial nature of Santa Rosa Avenue corridor at that point. And finally, to utilize a clean, modern aesthetic in the play and community amenity spaces. Next slide, please. So here we see the proposed site plan. The project site is deep and somewhat narrow. The smaller parcel to the north does provide for access to the project site. As you come into the project site, you can either go enter into the site itself and go to the left, where you find parking and a portion of the project building, or go to the right and then travel on down around the site itself. As you come around the southern portion of the site, then that drive aisle does exit out onto Santa Rosa Avenue again. And both project entrances are two-way, so you would be able to do right and left turns out of either entrance. As we can see here on the site plan, the building, the overall residential buildings are comprised of two separate buildings connected by a walkway. The front building does come up to the front of the street and provide, while it's all residential uses and all serves the multifamily building, as we'll see in some upcoming slides, it does give the character of a commercial space consistent with the other commercial uses along Santa Rosa Avenue corridor. Then behind the front building, we do have a outdoor community amenity area, and then those amenity areas extend on the south side of the second L-shaped building, further back into the project, where we have a pool, and then we have outdoor spaces that are more adult oriented for outdoor dining and relaxation. Next slide, please. And so here in the preliminary landscape plan, we can see the landscaping that's proposed on the site. On the western edge of the site, adjacent to Highway 101, the project is proposing plantings of new trees. They would need to remove existing trees in order to facilitate development of the project. Those trees would be replaced per mitigation requirements. Additional trees would be added, and heavy landscaping would be installed. Then throughout the remainder of the site, the majority of the landscaping is immediately adjacent to the building, within the outdoor community areas, and then along the street frontage. Based upon the site plan, the proposed development would not be detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare, in that the residential use is a permitted use similar to existing and planned future uses in the area. And the number of parking spaces would be sufficient for safe, convenient, and efficient operation of the use due to the reduced parking demand resulting from enhanced access to multimodal transportation networks. As we can see here in the preliminary landscape plan, the community spaces, especially the outdoor community spaces, because they are tucked in within the project site itself, create those opportunities for gathering with neighbors, with visitors, and the tree and plant materials integrate into the site to the greatest extent possible, while still allowing for that solar production on the solar canopy carports that are arranged throughout the site. Next slide, please. A variety of trees are proposed on the site, including the Chinese pistache, crepe myrtles, and southern magnolias, as well as several other ornamental trees. And then along the rear of the Highway 101 portion are larger pine trees. Next slide, please. So then this is the front of the project with a view from the east. At the ground level, we do see that the design of the project reflects more of a commercial use, although these spaces would be private spaces solely for use of the project. Arranged along the front are included the indoor community amenity spaces, office leasing spaces, as well as bicycle storage. And then the project moves back into the depth of the site, as well as up higher for a total of 5 stories. The architectural design of the proposed development shown here is compatible with the character of the surrounding neighborhood, and that the building design is reflective of the existing and planned residential uses in the area, much like the existing development reflects either the residential or commercial uses that are currently in place. And the project site is well connected to vehicle transit, bicycle, and pedestrian networks. Next slide, please. As we move around the building, we see that the design on all four sides of the building does establish a highly visible, cohesive design aesthetic and provide a design vocabulary to support future development. The next slide, please. And in this view from the south, we start to see, while the outdoor amenity areas aren't shown, we do see how the front building creates a unique space on the interior of the project itself, and then where those outdoor amenity areas would be located, tucked into the south side of that second building that is L-shaped and extends to the back of the site. These design components are consistent with the framework for design review and with the applicable design principles, and they demonstrate that it would not interfere with the use and enjoyment of the neighboring existing or future developments, in that the site plan, the building design, and the landscaping would create a suitable living environment and strengthen the sense of place. Next slide, please. And then this is another view. This is a view looking at the rear of the building from the southwest. So we see that very highly evident residential use with those additional design details create the building image that would be seen from Highway 101 as you travel through Santa Rosa. Next slide, please. And so the building form, the massing and materials and detailings are a cohesive expression of the design concept and provide an identifiable expression of the building's form and function. Next slide, please. And here are some just exterior building elevations viewed from the south and the east. Next. And again from the north and from the west. Next slide, please. And so the colors and materials, we do see the brick facade that would be used as recommended by Design Review Board. Additionally, the use of stucco and fiber cement siding with those toned back, more earth tone colors. The design of the proposed development would provide a desirable environment for its occupants, remain aesthetically appealing, and be appropriately maintained, in that the site and building design promote sustainable lifestyle options in both form and function. Next slide, please. And so we see the solar carport detail. These are all metal structures, and they do support the project's goals of net zero for electricity usage in both site and building design, in that we have solar power generation and or production and incorporate water and energy saving features throughout the buildings as well as the landscaping. Next slide, please. So this project has been reviewed as required under the California Environmental Quality Act and has been determined to be exempt pursuant to Class 32, Section 15332 for infill development projects. It is consistent with the general plan and the current zoning code. It's located within the city of Santa Rosa jurisdiction. The project site is less than 5 acres. It's not located within a designated habitat area, would not result in any significant effects related to traffic, noise, air quality, or water quality, and is adequately served by required utilities and public services. Both a traffic impact study were prepared by a licensed engineer, and the results determined that there would be no significant impact upon existing traffic conditions. Additionally, a noise study was prepared, and the project is required to comply with the recommendations contained in that noise study as related to installation of the sound wall and the windows used in the project building. Next slide, please. No public comments were received in response to the notice of application. One public comment was received in response to the notice of public hearing. That comment was provided as late correspondence and was sent as support for the project in achieving the city's goal for providing affordable housing. Next slide, please. Following planning review, it is recommended by Planning and Economic Development that the zoning administrator approve minor design review for Santa Rosa Avenue Apartments at 2905 Santa Rosa Avenue. Planning staff is available for any questions. The applicant is available as well for questions and does have a presentation for this evening's project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Triple. This is Andy Gustafson, Zoning Administrator. I'd like now to provide the applicant opportunity to add to and describe the project. Maybe provide a little more detail or your area that Mr. Triple didn't dwell on. Let me ask a question up at the beginning before you begin your presentation. Is this project the same ownership structure, the management structure as you described with your previous project on Kiwanis Springs Road?
Yes, it is.
Okay. For sake of, I think you can highlight, but maybe the details that you described in terms of management last time, but go through the design details, and particularly I'm interested how, if there were any changes to the design in response to concept review by the design review board.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Gustafson, for this opportunity. Hello again. My name is Jake Lingo, and I'm here on behalf of Integrated Community Development. We're also known by our initials as ICD. I will start out, I'll apologize if you've heard the first hearing. I do want to go over our company background though for a second time. I think it's important for the community to understand who we are and what we stand for. And then I'll give you some brief notes on the development. Thank you again, Andrew Triple, Andy Gustafson, Bill Rose, and city staff for all their efforts in preparing the staff report and bringing the zoning administrator hearing forward during these challenging times of COVID-19. Tonight, I'll touch base on our development team, who we are and what we do, and then present to you the vision we have for 2905 Santa Rosa Avenue. ICD is a fully integrated development firm that specializes in all aspects of real estate development with the primary focus on affordable housing. We focus on affecting change by creating environments that uplift communities by being sustainable, socially responsible, and economically viable. Our strategic nonprofit partner is Corporation for Better Housing, who has been in the affordable housing industry for over 25 years. Together, we have developed and constructed 75 developments totaling close to 5,000 housing units throughout the state of California. We have secured approximately $2 billion worth of both public and private financing to construct these developments. We all know that Santa Rosa has a housing crisis and that houses and apartments are in high demand, and that prices and rents continue to outpace wages. This crisis has only been exacerbated by the devastation of wildfires. The city of Santa Rosa has taken some tremendous steps to help foster smart growth and development, such as the one we are proposing here at 2905 Santa Rosa Avenue, by creating priority development areas and incentives to developers willing to invest in these areas. I'll now talk about the project itself, and again, maybe touch on some areas in response to what we did with the design review board. I'd also like to thank the one public comment that was speaking in support of the development. I appreciate the support. Andrew, again, you did a fantastic job of describing the project. I thought you were very in-depth in highlighting all of the design features. One thing that I did want to do, like I said, a step through the DRB comments. One of the comments received was regards to the south side of the building. And basically, everyone at the DRB seemed to really like the brick veneer and the different elements presented on the facade on Santa Rosa Avenue. And the board members commented that they would like to see those elements continued on into what they called a four-sided architecture. And so in response, we added additional brick facades and incorporated more varying color patterns, making for a more complete and sophisticated finish. Our goal was to create a destination/gateway to Santa Rosa. Obviously, this building being right up against Highway 101 is going to have a great presence for people arriving to the city from the south. And so I thought that was a great suggestion from the board. And I believe with their guidance of the DRB, we have achieved this goal. We were also asked to include more canopy trees and vegetation. We added more trees throughout the project, including the landscape buffer to the northern easement behind the EVA turnaround. But much like Kiwanis Springs, we were limited by the amount of trees because of the covered parking. The stalls on this development are covered with PV panel hosting steel canopies to reduce solar heat gain at paved surfaces and to provide 100% of the project's power requirements with renewable energy. This will be a net zero energy development. One of the trade-offs with the net zero energy design is that the solar array will be placed on top of the carports and therefore taking away space for shade trees in the parking lots. In our opinion, this is a trade-off we are willing to accept, as the benefit of the net zero energy designation helps reduce our carbon footprint and provides cost savings to the residents. We were also asked to include a sound wall and vegetation along the western boundary against Highway 101, which we have now included into the project, and we have incorporated a dog park area in the upper corner. We believe that we have an opportunity before us to make a real positive impact on the residents of Santa Rosa. This development, along with Kiwanis Springs, will help connect jobs, housing, and services while improving mobility options that reduce air pollution and encourage increased transit ridership. This development provides opportunities for housing in an urban environment. Our goal is to build a development that will be attractive, sustainable, and support modern family lifestyles while contributing to alleviate the housing shortage. That'll conclude my presentation at this time, and I'm here to answer any questions that you or the public may have.
Thank you. Is any member of your team wishing to make comment in addition, or if we have any questions that come from the public, I'll be asking you to respond.
No further comment at this time, and we'll look forward to your questions, if any. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, I'd like to open the public hearing. If there are any members of the public, I would like to remind you, those of you who are on the Zoom application, to select the hand icon to raise your hand, and we will recognize you in turn. Those of you who are listening by phone, please remember to press *9 on your phone, and your number will be recognized and allow you to comment. So at this point, I am looking to see if we have any attendees present who wish to comment at this point. And I see none. I'll give a moment here for anybody who is looking for the raise their hand sign. All right, I will close the public comment period of this hearing item. So at this point, again, I want to say that this project, any action taken tonight on the project is appealable. July, I think we said the 5th. Is that the Monday? No, July 6th is the Monday, is the day for the appeal. This project, same team, very, I think, if not exactly, but what I appreciate is seeing the same team come to two sites that are nearby and yet come up with different responses to the site. So that's exemplary to me of good design work, and I think being responsive to the design review board comments. I think the project planner's presentation very clearly showed that this was a project also consistent with the design guidelines, the development standards, and that we are getting, that it does qualify for a density bonus for the amount of affordability in the project. Not only density bonus, but exceptions or concessions to development standards. The findings that the planner made are supportive, but I would like to make the same changes to findings number 4 and 6 as we made on the other project, because I think it, in the record, becomes a bit stronger how this project in the case of finding number 4, is exemplary design. It is a residential type use that I hope is the model for more residential multifamily development along the Santa Rosa corridor. If we do have the draft modifications to the submitted resolution, let's show that for the record at this point. And if you could display that in whole page, I think, yeah, view, one page view, the next, there you go. And I don't know how that display, okay. So you can see that the changes are clarifications to finding number 1, and I think the same applicable changes to, the same changes to finding number 4 apply here. And namely that this design bridges an existing residential use in the area with planned residential use that we hope to see developed here in the future. And that it really does rises up to the challenge of this site. And I think too, it's, the point was made about the view from Highway 101, this project and all these parcels that lie between Santa Rosa Avenue and Highway 101 have the challenge of having 2 frontages, one of which is the functional frontage from the street on Santa Rosa Avenue, but the other is a very visible frontage from 101 and does set the stage for visitors coming into the community. So I very much appreciate how responsive that design was to design review board comments on that. So thank you very much. With regard to condition number or finding number 6, here again, while there may not be the same level of traffic issues or pedestrian safety on Kiwanis Springs Road, this project deals with the traffic issues there. It is a site that is maximizing housing where there are support for transportation, not just vehicles, but also public transit. So these changes, I think, help reinforce that idea. The conditions of approval that were presented are appropriate. Let's just scroll down to that. In reviewing this resolution, next page. All of this here is just Word document edits that are not modifications. The red line edits would be the ones that I would act on this evening. And I can see some changes to wording here that I support. Those are just typographical, not substantive. And we'll wait till we get to the end. Thank you very much. So with that, with the modified resolutions that I described and we looked at, I approve this project and its resolution with those changes, and look forward to this team building these projects and continuing to do work in the city. I really do like to see that design professionals are actually designing and responding to the site. So great job, thank you. With that, I think we can draw this meeting to a close. I adjourn the June 25th zoning administrator hearing. Go forth, thank you.